True McDonald's Horror Story, Part 1. My name is Elijah, and I was 21 years old when this happened. I worked the closing shift at a McDonald's in rural Kentucky, about 30 miles outside of Louisville. It was a Thursday night, 11:45 p.m., and I was alone in the storage room doing inventory when I heard footsteps above me. Not the normal creaking of an old building. Actual footsteps. Heavy, deliberate moving across the ceiling tiles directly over my head. The thing is, there was nothing above that ceiling except insulation ductwork and darkness. No one should have been up there. No one could have been up there. But someone was. And they stopped moving right when I stopped breathing. Before I continue, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment telling me where you are listening from tonight. Because what I discovered in that ceiling changed everything I thought I knew about safety. Part 2. I had been working at that McDonald's for about 14 months. It was not the career I had dreamed of, but it paid the bills while I figured out what I wanted to do with my life. The restaurant was one of those older locations built back in the 80s, sitting alone on a state highway between two small towns. We got a decent lunch crowd from the nearby factory and truckers stopping on their way to Louisville. But by evening, things got quiet. The closing shift was always the same crew. Me, a guy named Deshaun, who worked the grill, and Maria, who handled the front counter and drive-through. Our manager, a woman named Patricia, usually left around 10 when things slowed down, trusting us to close up properly. That Thursday had been slower than usual. A cold front had moved through dropping temperatures into the 20s, and most people were staying home. By 9:30, we had not had a customer in over an hour. Patricia decided to head out early, leaving me in charge of the final lockup. The restaurant was old, and it showed. The tiles were cracked, in places the equipment was outdated, and there were parts of the building that just felt neglected. The storage room in particular always gave me an uneasy feeling. It was in the back corner past the walk-in freezer down a short hallway that the overhead lights did not quite reach. The ceiling tiles were yellowed and sagging, and there was a constant smell of mildew that no amount of cleaning could eliminate. I avoided that storage room when I could. But on Thursday nights, I had to do inventory. Company policy. Count the supplies note, what needed reordering, file the report before close. At 11:30, I grabbed the inventory clipboard and headed to the back. Deshaun was finishing his cleaning in the kitchen, and Maria was counting the register. We had maybe an hour left before we could all go home. The hallway to the storage room was dark. One of the overhead lights had burned out weeks ago, and no one had replaced it. I made a mental note to mention it to Patricia again, then pushed open the storage room door. The fluorescent light inside flickered twice before coming on, casting harsh shadows across the shelves of supplies. Boxes of cups, napkins, condiment packets, all stacked in neat rows. Nothing out of the ordinary. I started my count at the back of the room, working my way forward. Cups large, 42 sleeves. Cups medium, 38 sleeves. I made notes on the clipboard, falling into the familiar rhythm. That is when I heard it. A creak above me, like weight shifting on old wood. I stopped writing and looked up at the ceiling. The tiles were the standard drop ceiling type 2-foot squares resting in a metal grid. Above them was dead space, maybe 4 feet of emptiness between the tiles and the actual roof filled with insulation and ductwork. Another creak, closer this time. Then footsteps, unmistakable. Someone walking slowly across the space above my head. Part 3. I stood frozen clipboard in hand, staring at the ceiling. The footsteps continued for maybe 3 or 4 seconds, then stopped. Silence. I waited, barely breathing, listening for any other sound. Nothing. Just the hum of the fluorescent light and the distant rumble of the freezer compressor. I told myself it was probably an animal, a raccoon or a possum that had gotten into the roof space. It happens sometimes in old buildings like this. Nothing to worry about. But the footsteps had sounded heavy, too heavy for a small animal, and they had been deliberately measured, like someone trying to move quietly, but not quite succeeding. I backed slowly towards the door, keeping my eyes on the ceiling. One of the tiles directly above where I had been standing seemed slightly askew, just a fraction of an inch off from the others, like it had been moved recently. I left the storage room and walked quickly back to the kitchen. Deshaun was wiping down the grill, his back to me. "You done with inventory already?" "Did you hear that?" I asked. He turned around, frowning. "Hear what?" "Footsteps coming from the ceiling in the storage room." Deshaun raised an eyebrow. "Footsteps?" "I am serious. It sounded like someone walking up there." He laughed, but I could see a flicker of unease in his eyes. "Probably just the building settling. This place is old as hell." It was not settling. It was footsteps. Someone is up there. Deshaun set down his rag and walked over to me. "All right, let us go check it out. Probably just rats or something." We walked back to the storage room together. I pushed open the door and pointed at the ceiling. "Right up there. That tile looks like it was moved." Deshaun squinted at it. "Looks normal to me." "It is crooked. Look at it compared to the others." He stared for a moment, then shrugged. "I do not know, man. They all look the same to me." I was about to argue when Maria's voice came over the intercom. "Hey, we got a customer in drive-through." Deshaun clapped me on the shoulder. "Come on, we can check it out later. It is probably nothing." He walked back to the kitchen. I lingered for a moment, staring at that ceiling tile. Then I heard it again, faint but unmistakable. A soft scraping sound, like something being dragged across insulation. I left the storage room and did not look back. Part 4. For the next 30 minutes, I tried to focus on closing duties. I helped Maria with the front counter, restocked the napkin dispensers, swept the dining area floor. Normal tasks, routine. But I could not stop thinking about those footsteps. At 12:15, we finished our closing checklist. Deshaun had already clocked out and was waiting by the back door, eager to get home. "You coming?" he asked. "Give me a minute. I want to check something." He rolled his eyes. "Still worried about your ceiling ghost? Just go. I will be right behind you." Deshaun shrugged and pushed her through the back door. I heard his car start up a minute later, then pull away. Maria was gathering her things by the front counter. "I am heading out too. You good to lock up?" "Yeah, go ahead." She gave me a wave and left through the front door. I locked it behind her, then stood alone in the silent restaurant. The dining area lights were off. The kitchen equipment had been shut down. The only sounds were the hum of the refrigeration units and the soft buzz of the exit signs. I should have left. I should have locked the back door, set the alarm, and gone home. But I needed to know. I grabbed a stepladder from the supply closet and carried it to the storage room. I set it up directly beneath the tile that looked crooked, then climbed up until my head was level with the ceiling. I pushed the tile up and slid it aside. The space above was pitch black. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight, shining it into the darkness. At first, I did not understand what I was seeing. There was a blanket, a thick wool blanket spread out across the insulation like a makeshift bed. Next to it was a pillow, dirty and stained. And scattered around the blanket were empty food wrappers, McDonald's wrappers, Big Mac boxes, fry containers, drink cups. Someone had been living in our ceiling. I swept the flashlight further into the space. More wrappers, more trash. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Photographs, dozens of them pinned to one of the wooden support beams. Photos taken inside the restaurant, behind the counter in the kitchen, in the drive-thru. Photos of me, of Deshawn, of Maria, of Patricia. All of us going about our jobs completely unaware that we were being watched. Part 5. I nearly fell off the ladder. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. Someone had been living above us, watching us, taking pictures of us. For how long? Days, weeks, months? I climbed down from the ladder, my mind racing. I needed to call the police. I needed to get out of this building. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. 911, what is your emergency? My name is Elijah. I work at the McDonald's on Highway 44. I just found evidence that someone has been living in the ceiling of our restaurant. There are photographs of the employees. Someone has been watching us. The dispatcher asked me to stay on the line. She said officers were being sent to my location. I walked quickly toward the back door, wanting to wait outside for the police. The building felt different now, hostile. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. I was passing the walk-in freezer when I heard it. A ceiling tile falling. The crash of it hitting the floor somewhere behind me. I spun around. At the end of the hallway near the storage room, a figure was climbing down from the ceiling. A man, thin and dirty, wearing dark clothes. He dropped to the floor and straightened up, looking directly at me. We stared at each other for a long moment. He was maybe 50 years old, with a gaunt face and hollow eyes. His hair was long and matted, and his clothes were stained and torn. And he was smiling. A slow, empty smile that did not reach his eyes. "You should not have looked up there, Elijah," he said. He knew my name. I turned and ran. Part 6. I sprinted towards the back door, my sneakers slapping against the tile floor. Behind me, or I could hear him following. Not running, but walking. Steady, deliberate footsteps that echoed through the empty restaurant. I reached the back door and slammed into the push bar. It did not open. I pushed again, harder. Nothing. The door was stuck, or jammed, or something. I blocked it. His voice came from behind me, closer now. "While you were cleaning the front, I knew tonight was the night." I spun around. He was standing at the end of the hallway, maybe 30 feet away, still smiling. "Tonight was the night for what?" I asked, my voice shaking. "The night I finally introduced myself. We have been living together for so long, Elijah. I know everything about you, your schedule, your habits, the way you always check your phone when you think no one is watching, the way you sing along to the music when you clean the lobby." He took a step forward. "I have been watching you for 4 months. 4 months of waiting, planning, and now finally we can be together. I looked around desperately for another way out. The front door was locked and my keys were in my pocket, but he was between me and the front of the restaurant, the office. Patricia's office had a window. It was small, but I might be able to squeeze through. I turned and ran through the kitchen, knocking over a rack of trays as I went. The crash echoed through the building, but I did not slow down. The office was at the end of the kitchen, past the grill and the fry station. I yanked open the door and threw myself inside. The window was there, small and grimy, looking out onto the side of the building. I grabbed the latch and pulled. It was painted shut. It would not budge. I heard footsteps in the kitchen. He was coming. I looked around the office for something to break the glass. A stapler. Too light. A phone. Too awkward. My eyes landed on the fire extinguisher mounted on the wall. I grabbed it and swung it at the window. The glass shattered outward shards, falling into the darkness outside. Cold air rushed in. I was climbing through the window when I felt a hand grab my ankle. Part 7. I kicked backward with everything I had. My foot connected with something soft, and I heard him grunt. His grip loosened for just a second. That was all I needed. I pulled myself through the window, feeling broken glass cut into my palms and forearms. I fell onto the pavement outside, landing hard on my shoulder. I scrambled to my feet and ran. The parking lot was empty, except for my car parked near the back. I fumbled for my keys as I ran, nearly dropping them twice. Behind me, I heard the window breaking further. He was climbing out after me. I reached my car and yanked open the door. I threw myself inside and hit the lock button. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. I could see him now coming around the corner of the building, walking toward my car with that same steady pace. The engine roared to life. I threw the car into reverse and floored the accelerator. He had to jump out of the way as I backed up. I caught a glimpse of his face through the windshield, that empty smile finally gone replaced by something like anger. I shifted into drive and tore out of the parking lot, tires squealing. In my rearview mirror, I saw him standing in the middle of the lot, watching me drive away. I didn't slow down until I reached the police station. Part 8. The police searched the restaurant that night. They found everything I had described: the blankets, the photographs, the food wrappers. They also found things I had not seen. Notebooks filled with observations about the employees, detailed maps of the restaurant, showing where the security cameras could and could not see, and a collection of personal items that had gone missing over the past few months. A pen from Patricia's desk, a hairband that Maria had lost, a receipt from my pocket that I had thrown away. He had been collecting pieces of us. They found evidence that he had been living in that ceiling for at least 5 months. He had cut a hole in the back of the building hidden behind the dumpster that gave him access to the space above the tiles. He would come and go at night when the restaurant was closed, stealing food and water, watching us through gaps in the ceiling tiles during the day. His name was Harold Dean Whitmore, 53 years old. He had a history of mental illness and had been released from a state facility 2 years earlier. He had no home, no family, no connections. He had simply chosen our Mcdonald's's as his new home, and he had chosen me as his obsession. The police searched for him for 3 days before they found him. He was hiding in an abandoned barn about 5 miles from the restaurant, surrounded by more photographs, more notebooks, more evidence of his fixation. He is in a secure psychiatric facility, now awaiting trial, on charges of stalking, breaking, and entering an attempted assault. The prosecutor said he will probably never be released. I quit my job at McDonald's the day after the incident. I could not go back there. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that ceiling tile sliding aside. I saw his face emerging from the darkness. I saw that smile. For months afterward, I had nightmares. I would wake up in a cold sweat, convinced I could hear footsteps above my bed. I started sleeping with the lights on. I checked the locks on my doors and windows 3, 4, 5 times before I could relax. I moved to a new apartment across town. Then I moved again to a different city. I got a job in an office surrounded by people, during the day security cameras in every hallway. But the fear never completely went away. I think about him sometimes. Harold Dean Whitmore locked away in some institution, probably still thinking about me, still remembering every detail of my routine, my habits, my face. The prosecutor told me that in his notebooks he had written about his plans for me, what he wanted to do, how he wanted it to happen. I asked her not to tell me the details. I did not want to know how close I had come. Aftermath. It has been 3 years since that night. I am 24 now, working as an accountant for a small firm in Nashville. I have a girlfriend, an apartment with good locks, and a life that feels mostly normal. But I am not the same person I was before. I check ceilings now. Everywhere I go, I look up. Restaurants, offices, stores. I look for tiles that seem crooked gaps, that seem too wide shadows, that seem too dark. I cannot help it. I think about all the places where someone could hide, all the spaces above our heads that we never think about. Drop ceilings crawl, spaces attics. How easy it would be for someone to climb up there and watch, to live above us, without our knowledge, studying our routines, learning our names. How many of them are out there right now? How many Harolds living in the darkness, watching through the cracks, I do not know. And that is what scares me most. Last month, I got a letter. No return address, no signature, just a single sentence written in handwriting I did not recognize. I still think about you, Elijah. The police said there was nothing they could do. The letter had been mailed from a town 300 miles away. Harold Dean Whitmore is still in the psychiatric facility. They checked. So who sent the letter, I do not know. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone read about my story online and decided to mess with me. There are people who do that kind of thing. But maybe not. Maybe Harold had a friend, someone he talked to, someone he shared his photographs with. Maybe I am being watched right now. I look up at the ceiling of my apartment sometimes, at the smooth white surface, and I wonder what is on the other side. I tell myself there is nothing there, just insulation and wiring and empty space. But I check anyway. I climb up on a chair and push on the ceiling, making sure it is solid, making sure no one has cut through. I check the locks. I check the windows. I check the shadows. And I never ever work a closing shift. Final words. If you work in a restaurant or a store or any building with a drop ceiling, please listen to me. Pay attention to the sounds above your head. Notice if tiles look crooked or damaged. Report anything that seems out of place. Because you never know who might be watching. You never know who might be living in the darkness above you, studying your face, learning your name, waiting for the right moment. I got lucky. I heard the footsteps. I looked up. I got out. Not everyone is so fortunate. There are people in this world who slip through the cracks of society. People with no homes, no connections, no one to notice when they disappear into the spaces between walls and ceilings. Some of them are harmless. Some of them just want a warm place to sleep. But some of them are like Harold Dean Whitmore. Some of them are watching. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If you hear footsteps where there should not be, footsteps, do not ignore them. Do not tell yourself it is just the building settling. Get out. Call for help. Do not go back until someone has checked every inch of that space. Because the ceiling is not as solid as you think, and you never know who might be looking down.